So I think
Let's
we
start.
should probably kick off. As always, just so everyone's aware, there is a Q&A at the end. Ask questions as we go through. You can put them directly in chat, but there is also a Q&A. So if you wanted to raise them in there, you can do so. Romy generally collates all the questions for me and gives me a grilling at the end anyway. But if I see anything pop up, which is exactly on the money while we're doing it, we'll go through those.
Yeah.
So Romy is here basically to give me a grilling at the end, as I say. My name's John from Octopus. For those of you who somehow don't know me, I run and am the general nerd at Octopus Computers. It's my job to stay abreast of all the technologies and changes and compliance and security and risks and products and platforms and all the nerdy things that no one wants to deal with is the life that I lead. Today's webinar is a little bit different. Normally, we are quite focused in on a single topic. Today, we are talking exclusively about effectively what I think this year is going to bring. So I'd like to think a lot of these are educated guesses. I've been in the industry now for quite a long time. So a lot of these I have sources or citations for. It's not just speculative gut feel. That being said, in particular, as we start talking about AI and future tech, it is accelerating at the moment at such a rate that guessing what's going to come next is difficult. I think we are at the middle of an exponential curve at the moment, and there's no sign of it flattening out. So we'll discuss a bit of that. Overall, we're going to talk about AI at a very broad level and sort of my predictions on that one. We'll talk about Microsoft specifically. We'll talk about Google. We'll obviously have to talk about cybersecurity because it's getting scarier and worse. And then we'll talk about the fun and exciting emerging tech, stuff like XR, which is mixed reality. So VR, AR, virtual reality, augmented reality, and stuff beyond that, like quantum computing, digital identities, those kind of things. So there's an awful lot to cover. I will try and rattle through it like I always do and let people finish early because it's always nicest. But as I say, if anything I say doesn't sound right or if you want to challenge me on it, please do. It is literally a discussion because so much of this is speculation as opposed to me asserting things as fact for the most part. And if you have questions about anything which comes up, as always, do ask. So we'll dive straight in with my AI predictions for 2026. The first one is obviously that AI agents are going to be everywhere. Now, better still, we've already started encountering a lot of these AI chatbots, a lot of AI messaging you may see. You've probably seen quite a few AI prospect emails landing in your inbox. Maybe you've had the misfortune of calling a company and the AI actually is the one answering the phone, screening the calls, doing those kind of things. That's already in place at quite a lot of high-level enterprise companies. Now, virtual agents are growing. The models are getting much more refined, though. So their ability to imitate human speech and writing is growing as well. And it's going to be much harder to distinguish humans from machines. Additionally, we might actually see a shift where people prefer talking to the AI chatbot than talking to a human. I had an experience 2 months ago with, admittedly, it was a tech company, but the chatbot response was so detailed and so quick that I felt it would be better than anything I would have received from the human equivalent, simply because I could ask a specific question and get the exact detail I needed back immediately because of the way that the AI agent is able to scrape and collate information, which you just can't do that on a human to human interaction. As it gets better at imitating us, and it will, I think you may see a shift that not only are they more prolific, but they might become preferred. So keep an eye on that one. Additionally, I think we're going to see a huge rush as companies want to become AI ready in air quotes. Now, we've already seen that coming around quite a lot. It probably was one of the buzzwords for last year was AI ready. We certainly saw it an awful lot in the MSP space, that's managed service provider. What this likely means, though, is supposed to be the focus on the tools, so ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or Copilot or Gemini or any of these LLMs that you want to reference. What you may see instead is as it shifts more towards business and enterprise, the focus will become on AI-ready data. And that, of course, is things like the data being clean, governed, labeled, structured, and with accurate metadata, so that the AI agents know exactly where to look for the right information, how to collate it, and how to present things to you, as well as what they're not allowed to see. So things like sensitive data labeling to say that this is internal, do not share, external, do not analyze. These are tools which have been in place for years on suites like Microsoft and Google, but most SMEs didn't have to worry about it because the only person accessing their data was them. As that shifts into an automated machine doing it, suddenly it becomes quite important. So just, keep an eye on things being AI ready. You'll probably see a couple of companies referring to themselves as AI ready specialists or preparing a business to become AI ready, those kind of steps. Additionally, on that, one of the buzzwords I expect to see is the word agentic. In our space, I've been seeing it for about 6 months already. I'm certain this is going to be one of those ones that starts popping up everywhere. Everyone will be telling that their AI is agentic. What agentic means is actually unrelated to the word agent. It's more that it can do something autonomously. So it's capable of planning, reasoning, and executing tasks with little to no human oversight across your workflows in the business. And that's where the word agentic comes from, not as in the AI chat agent, more it will start to be able to act like an actual autonomous employee. And I think there's going to be a huge push, and we're going to see people pushing for agentic AI models being there. To that end, I'm pretty sure that AI is going to become the new SaaS. There was a shift over, I would say, the last 10 years, but specifically the last 5, where everything in IT has become a subscription-based model. Every application you want is a different web tool that you access through your browser and you pay monthly for. Now, AI has done a great job of driving adoption by making sure that it's free and everyone can gain access to it. However, that is not a great business model. And this is why a lot of people are talking about AI bubbles and that kind of piece. And it's because they need to start showing and demonstrating return on investment. And now we see this already as ChatGPT starts limiting what you can get on the free plans and starts charging you for some of the premium features. I think it's something like you have 5 requests a day, I think now on free or something along those lines. Additionally, they've started adding in sponsored and advertised content in ChatGPT search results. They've announced they're going to roll that out. Google Gemini, which we'll come on to, massively hiked their prices to cover the cost of Gemini, and Microsoft stripped out Copilot and said if you want to use it properly, it will be a paid for extra. So all of these companies where you traditionally could have a play with the tools for free are starting to monetize, and they're going to have to because the amounts that they're investing are huge. So they really need to start capitalizing on that and demonstrating revenue behind it. So I think we're going to see everyone start losing access to some of the tools they're using and have to start reaching paywalls and paying another subscription to start accessing them. The other and final piece that I think AIs, and it's going to be prevalent throughout all of this presentation, I should say, it just is at the moment. But in particular, all of our devices, so our phones, our tablets, and then pushing that forward to any smart devices in the home, your Alexas, your Internet of Things devices, so cameras, doorbells, anything like that. I can imagine AI is going to be on those as default. Now, the downside to that is as everyone is scrambling to roll these out, as opposed to building these larger models, what you'll start encountering is a lot of problems with them. I think the overall Chat GPT, Claude, Perplexity vibe is getting quite good as a search engine alternative. I don't think the same can be true for the AI that we're finding on devices and the way in which that's driving automation, because they are having to put it in there to keep their board of directors happy, to say, hey, look, we're working in AI. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's as polished, and it's more of an afterthought. So you already see this in things like sometimes the way that Siri will return call offs and requests just isn't as good as what you're getting on some of the more advanced AI tools at the moment. So if that plays out across Arlo cameras or Ring doorbells, you get this broader view that it's more of a hindrance than a help. Not everything has to be AI powered. So as this plays out, we may see this spike in it arriving on devices, and towards the tail end of the year, everyone dialing a little bit back to dumber devices. I might be wrong, but that's sort of my prediction on that one. So that's my very top level view of what I suspect AI will do. In terms of which AI will win or which one people should be using, it is a moving target at the moment. We've done a whole separate presentation. It's on YouTube if you want to check it out about which AIs are good, why they have their strengths and weaknesses. At the moment, it's hard to say who's going to win the arms race, if there is going to be a singular winner. I suppose it's just one thing I wanted to say is that there is a tipping point they are all racing to. At the moment, any AI improvement is actually conducted by humans. We are the ones who are finding the faults, developing them, and improving the models. The reason they're all investing so much is that the first person who can make the AI which is self-improving, firstly, terrifying, because it will be able to outstrip our intellect far quicker than something we can control. But any company which first tips into that will be the one that wins. because the person who hits it first will be able to say, hey, everyone, it's already within a day better than anything the competitors could manage. And that's the arms race that we're facing at the moment. So it's very hard to predict who's going to make that breakthrough at the moment. And it doesn't necessarily correlate with funding. Moving on to Microsoft, my predictions for Microsoft in 2026. This isn't just their 365 platform, but their broader options. My first one is that Microsoft will keep pushing Copilot. It is already embedded into Windows 11 natively. You can't avoid it, and it pops up all the time. And they're building on their previous tools like Power Automate and Flow, which were automation workflows. They've taken that, added a chatbot agent, and turned it into this broader Copilot tool. But it isn't just the software that they're working. Microsoft are pretty good at technology and they're pretty good at commercials and making profit. So they are aware of the fact that the incumbents such as Nvidia are making a fortune. If you look at the share prices of Nvidia, this is reflected there. So this year, Microsoft is actually releasing its second generation Maya chip, the Maya 200. It's an AI chip, which they will start deploying on their Surface devices so that they don't rely on Nvidia anymore. So I think you're going to see a large push from Microsoft into their hardware to support their AI development. Alongside that, you might see it broadening out as we come onto some of the emerging technology as well. Again, Microsoft's one of these companies which has a very broad stack. People aren't always aware of is them. I talk a lot about it every year. We do one of these tech trends, right? I mean, so I always come back to gaming because it's a good canary down the mine for people trying new things. And it's worth remembering that Microsoft owns Xbox. It owns one of the largest gaming platforms and is able to take a lot of risks with that. Concurrently, it can do the same on social media. Microsoft owns LinkedIn, so it's able to play with algorithms in the same way that companies like Meta are as well. So if you take all of these views, Microsoft actually has fingers in most tech pies and is able to push Copilot out quite aggressively. Um, I think it's also worth noting that Microsoft has announced they are doing global price increases this summer. It's currently estimated to be about a 15% price increase. That is across all licenses that I've been able to see, somewhere between 13 and 17%, but it's across all licenses. So Business Basic, Business Standard, the enterprise licenses, so E3, E5s, they are just going to start charging more. And that is outside of what they're already doing on currency fluctuations. So obviously as MSPs, it's something we're very aware of. We still don't have full details from Microsoft. We probably won't do until about a month before that announcement comes out. But as soon as we do, keep an eye on the newsletters. We'll tell everybody. But Microsoft will have to start charging more because they are investing so much, and they really are. Microsoft in the last quarter, so into November and December, outstripped all of its competitors in terms of investment into AI. And again, like I was saying on AI, they've got to start reclaiming that somehow. But it isn't just AI they're investing to, they're also putting it into all future tech, they're putting it into quantum computing, they're putting it into, like I said, their gaming platforms, pretty much anything that they can spend money on to make sure that they hold on to that top spot. That's what they're pushing for. So that's why they're going to be doing the price increases. Now, we are hoping as MSPs that part of that price increase will include some additional tools or functionality. But my gut instinct on Microsoft is they won't do that. If anything, following some news about 2 or 3 years ago where Microsoft had to pull some of the Microsoft Teams out of their 365 subscriptions, more likely it's going to go more of a granular route and they're just doing a blanket cost increase. So be aware of that coming this summer. The final one I want to talk about is their increased emphasis on identity and security and zero trust. Microsoft, like everyone, is promoting AI-powered identity. Just everything is AI. It's tiring. But this is going to be them focusing on things like network controls and their security priorities, basically. As threats rise, and we'll come on to threats, it's something where Microsoft is very aware of the fact that the ability of autonomous attacks is scaling much quicker than human prevention can get in the way of. So they really are pushing their security quite hard. I'm pretty sure this will become a core feature, and that means that it will be harder to log in and access some of your Microsoft tools, but probably in a good way. That's not one to panic about. What I would say though is because it's Microsoft, there will also be a higher level security add-on. There always is. My average count is about 1,700 Microsoft licenses at the moment. I'm pretty confident that by year end we'll be tickling 2,000 as they go for more of this granular menu piecemeal approach across their billing. Luckily, as a nerd, that's our job, not yours to worry about. And in fact, that probably ties us into, again, promoting our next webinar on the cost saving. Having an IT team be able to unpick all these different licenses and make sure you're on the right plan can really help drive down those costs. And that's probably where we are on Microsoft for the year. In short, they're going to keep pushing Copilot, they're going to keep spending money, and they're going to charge you more for the privilege. Coming on to Google, Google's Gemini is a massive one for them. Google has been one of the earliest investors into AI. They bought Google DeepMind going back 10 years, maybe 8, 10 years ago. Google Search has always been a level of AI or machine learning powered. The problem is that they were not the quickest to push this agent, this chat model, compared to models like Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT. However, Google is playing an enormous amount of catch up at the moment, and it is starting to come through. Google's presence in the AI space is only going to expand as they begin to limit access to search data. They've already made this a point. So if ever you want to have the most up-to-date search results from AI or the most present statistics, modern, accurate, recent, whatever word you want, that is definitely one where Gemini would just produce more accurate data than a tool like ChatGPT currently. Now, there's lots of back and forth, and obviously it's an arms race, but that's where it stands. So I can see as people begin looking for more recent information, as AI becomes more of a present tool, as it becomes more popular and utilized every day as a search engine, its access to more recent data is critical. Reddit has always been the biggest source of data for tools like ChatGPT, making up something like a third to almost 2/5, that kind of number of all its answers and data that it collates is just Reddit forums, so human opinion, whereas Google does try and cite things as well using its engine. Additionally, Google's really going to push into its agentic, there's that word again, AI workflows so that people on Google Workspace are able to automate much more of their business. And they're doing this probably better than Microsoft in spite of Microsoft's investment at the moment. Google has had Google AppSheet and AppScript for 5+ years now, and that is all automation that they're now leveraging to be code-free, to be built through AI agents. To that end, Google's offering is going to expand with new tools. Google loves to launch new products, but they also love to pull them. So with any of these tools, and I've got a little list I'll run you through now, I'll give you the names, we'll put them in the newsletter that follows up. It launches new things once a month minimum. You have a new product from Google roll out. However, once every 3 months, they also sunset one or kill it off. And that is a real pain when you find a tool that you love and it just goes. So in terms of free tools that Google have launched, they've got Google Stitch, which is app designs. They've got Build by AI Studio. That's building an entire web app. So you can build an entire CRM with no code. If you search Build by AI Studio Google, it will come up. You can have a play there. No code, build your own application. Google Opal, OPAL, is workflow automations. That's building mini apps. You have Notebook LM, which is summarizing documents and research. You can dump whole podcasts or research papers into it. It'll give you the salient points. Really useful for learning. Google Pomeli generates social posts from your website and content, so it automatically starts branding up and saying this is what you should do. Google Canvas is a Canva competitor for creating images and pictures. And Nano Banana Pro, which is a stupid name, is Google's image generation. That one is already built into Gemini, so they've already trialed that. It's out of what's called Google Labs and is into production on Gemini. And they're just some of the tools that I've seen in the last 2 months, I think, be deployed. So there are so many rolling out and so many interface changes constantly. It does mean it's a moving target. It does mean it's very challenging to keep up to date with it. So I wouldn't worry too much if you feel like you're missing out on something, because we never know with Google what they're actually going to keep. The final point on Google is their price increases. Now, Google hasn't announced any major price increases for 2026, and that's probably because they did an enormous price increase last year, between 17 and 22% on every subscription. As a Google reseller, we were told about it the day it happened. So we get no forewarning with Google on anything, even through channel. Now, they did that so that, unlike Microsoft, where Copilot is an extra, Gemini is baked in. So there's never an extra cost for using Gemini if you're on Google Workspace. However, like everyone, Google's prices are likely to increase. They just haven't given us any forewarning. I wouldn't expect such a hike, but I would expect somewhere between 5 and maybe 10%, so sort of 7% mark. Wouldn't astonish me if that increase comes on. And again, like Microsoft, that doesn't include currency fluctuations. built into both of these every month. The price in the UK does change based on the strength of the dollar anyway. Good IT providers absorb those costs depending on how extreme they are, but it is already baked in. The other point I wanted to make, tying Google and Microsoft together, is a bit more of a broader geopolitical one. Both Google and Microsoft are US companies. In terms of risk management, it's worth being aware of the fact that things are a little frosty with international relations at the moment. I wanted to highlight the fact that Google and Microsoft are foremost a company, a limited or private entity, not necessarily limited because they are a public company now, but they are a public company. Its most important job is to make money, and they would not shut down and serve exclusively the US if ever it were to come to that, and forego rest of world trading. In fact, it's a pretty easy sum to do. If you look at the revenue they make for rest of world and the revenue they make in US, they would more likely move out of the US to continue trading, and they've already got infrastructure to support that, than focus exclusively on that region. So although there is some level of risk depending on local government and blocking access to certain tools, which is one to be aware of, so having a level of what's called DR, disaster recovery, might be something to consider if you think it's heading that way. It's very unlikely that ever they block your access. It's more, it would come from local government than from Microsoft or Google, because it's in their interest to keep trading. Moving on to cybersecurity, which is much less fun than it used to be. Again, the buzzword AI is winning fundamentally in cybersecurity. AI attacks are getting so much more complex and so much more automated. So already we're seeing malware which adapts to antivirus and security products. We're seeing AI-driven attacks, so it will scan a network, automatically find the weaknesses and begin exploiting them. When I say network, I mean a broad business network. So that could include all of the human element and touch points as well. And it's able to do this much quicker than ever before. So the attack vectors from an AI cybercrime are much higher. Now, we saw so much cybercrime last year on major levels. Marks and Spencer's would probably be the biggest example in the news. They made a staggering loss because of the cyber attacks on them. Co-op had similar. We've seen this across every major group. And I assure you, we've only been publicly aware of the tip of the iceberg on this. The amount which is not being reported, which is being dealt with quietly, is vast. And that is simply because the risk of downtime is so great. As these attacks get better, expect to see more outages and more news articles coming to the fore, which affect end people and end users. To that end, autonomous crime using AI agents, given tools like deepfake, given the ability to impersonate people, is going to become more and more prevalent. You might well see more cold calls to yourself that you answer where there is no response on the other end of the line. And that is them recording your voice to create an AI voice agent that can mimic you. It's very easy to set up. There's free AI voice changers. They take about 30 seconds to produce. You can upload a clip. In particular risk, if you have something like a podcast, which I do, people could scan your voice, build that into the AI voice agent and create a voice impersonator of you. That agent can then call you, pretend to be me, tell you to do dangerous things. It's important, therefore, to start being aware of two-factor protection against the human piece of security. Not just the login check, but just two-factor checking every time somebody sounds like the person you know and is telling you to do something. Even if they look like the person you know on video, there is a high risk of it not being true. And the criminals are aware of this and they are exploiting it. It is a matter of time until we see something like that come through, where we see spear phishing attacks into major organizations where people are being spoofed and impersonated using AI on a deep level, especially remote organizations, but not exclusively, because it's easy to do on large satellite companies as well. We're also going to see more credential compromise and privilege misuse. It's already everywhere. This is like we saw, actually the Marks and Spencer's was exactly this, where an IT administrator was compromised within the organization through a lack of security, unfortunately on their side. There wasn't enough auditing in place, it wasn't protected, and they got in. It's already happening. It is always people that go wrong. Well, not always, 9 times out of 10. So it's going to keep coming through. And I think there is just a lag between what's happening and what's being reported. So expect to see perhaps the first half of the year reporting more of those sorts of attacks, more outages, excluding the major outages like what happened in Co-op where the shelves were all empty because of no logistics. And then in the second half, expect to see, maybe even the final quarter, some of these AI spoofing crimes coming through. Now, worst case scenario, that starts happening sooner, and we're all going to have to move a lot quicker and be more skeptical. Taking all of that abreast, what you're likely to then see is a massive rush on regulation and governance. There just are not enough rules in place to prevent the misuse of tools. There aren't. We often find that legislation lags 5 to 7 years behind the cutting edge technology. This is why companies like Meta can get away with abusing the algorithm to trick people. It's why tools like, let's use Meta again because they're not my favorite, Meta can pirate books because there was no law specifically about the way in which they trained their agents on public in air quotes information. So there just aren't the tools in place. If you look at what's happening at the moment with Grok on X, how companies are finally prosecuting them or going after them for being able to produce explicit images directly on the social media. It's vile and it's wrong, but the legislation wasn't there already to stop it, which is crazy. So that's always where technology functions. And I think there's going to be a very quick acceleration in terms of how much we try and control these. I already know from the MSP space, we're facing regulation coming into the next year. Larger organizations are facing it through tools like DORA and NIS2, which are European directives. And I think you're going to see more and more compliance organizations start to pop up, and maybe even some of those trust mark equivalents where, I'm a secure organization. Cyber Essentials has taken a step, but it's nowhere near enough to prevent against the cutting edge. So definitely keep an eye on some rush through legislations in UK law and international law to start stopping this. Moving on from there, we get to the fun and exciting emerging tech stuff. I wouldn't say that fun and exciting, but it's kind of cool. Because at least it's not AI driven. I think extended reality still isn't quite where it needs to be, but it's getting there. So I've been pushing and harping on about VR and AR, which is now XR or mixed reality, extended reality, for quite a while. I still think it has legs. I just don't think it's necessarily got a great business use case yet. But we are seeing it much more on direct consumers. The best example at the moment, like I've said there, is Ray-Ban's Meta, Ray-Ban Meta or Meta's Ray-Bans. They are literally sunglasses. They are capable of recording, analyzing, accessing your social media, posting directly. Now, again, going back to regulation, there's so much risk there. You don't know if you're being recorded. It's horrible. But that is a good example of mixed reality being used by the everyman. It's just getting out there more, and I think we're going to see that. Apple have had mixed success with their Apple Vision Pro, and by mixed I mean poor. But most people have. I think the most successful VR set's still the Oculus, which is Meta's headset, and they're definitely winning at the moment. Alongside that, though, looking at what happened at CES or CNET, which is the CNET we're announcing on CES. The technology show's just gone. The tools supporting mixed reality are getting ever better. So you are seeing things like Omni treadmills, where you can run in any direction, it's recorded, or move around and you not actually leave your spot. So you're physically engaging with your virtual world. They're now becoming commercially affordable. The price of those is coming down. You'll see those tools being adopted more. You're getting more haptic feedback devices where if you grab something in virtual reality, the glove you're wearing will give you the feel of actual touch. You combine that with hot and cold sensors, and you sort of get close to interacting realistically with a virtual world, which is very scary and very cool at the same time. I think at the moment they're not broadly available. They are still cost prohibitive, but they're definitely getting better. And it certainly seems to be where the entertainment industry in particular is pushing into quite hard. So one to watch is if any of those start being advertised. If you start seeing those adverts coming up, that's a good sign that there is money flowing into it and they're trying to drive marketing out there. As someone who has had a go on Omni treadmills and VR, they are great fun. They are crap for business. Having a virtual array of 20 monitors did not help me be more efficient. 2 monitors physically that I can interact with is still better. I've also tried the augmented reality where you can see the real world and your virtual overlay. It's kind of cool, but it's also a little bit annoying. If you're going to go get up and make a coffee, you don't want to have to take off a load of heavy equipment and technology, just try and interact with the real world. So it still very much feels not gimmicky per se, but not quite smooth enough. But again, I haven't tried the Ray-Ban Metas or those much lighter XR tools yet, so that's one to keep an eye on. Like I alluded to in cybersecurity, moving on, deep fakes are a problem. They've been a problem in the news for 2 years now, and it is getting much better. It is getting so difficult as people to tell the difference between AI, and real video. If you look at some of just a basic Instagram feed or a YouTube feed or anything where these short content videos are, it's now nearly impossible to truly tell the difference apart from common sense, if something is real or not. But if you look at how that's playing out across, let's say, Minneapolis, where there are videos emerging, how do we as users know what's real and what's faked? To that end, I suspect we're going to start seeing a rise in digital ID. And I'm not talking about the digital ID cards that the government are talking about. I'm talking more about how do we verify that the person you're speaking to on video is me? How do we own our own identities in a digital world where you can be faked and spoofed? Now, it's a very early conversation because people never thought you would have to own your own identity like that. We've talked about identity fraud more as someone taking your passport number rather than someone being able to virtually absorb your entire persona, voice, and look. But given that's where we're going, it's something to really keep an eye on. And I think we're going to see that in the news. We're going to see companies try and start tackle it. And then when it starts to look at a government level, maybe this is how they start to get their digital ID cards in. Obviously, it has to be so secure because if you lose that, you will never be able to prove you are you, which is another terrifying concept. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Additionally, quantum computing has been quietly plugging away in the background now for 5 years. We have successfully, I say we as I was in any way involved, humanity has last year been able to successfully run quantum computers. They are able to now perform on qubits, which are significantly better than anything in terms of petaflops that we can run on processors at the moment. I don't want to use too much nerdy jargon, but very powerful computers. Infinitely more powerful than what we can do at the moment. And they are now moving into pilot programs and early adoption. So expect to see this in areas like pharmaceuticals and medical research, where you need to compute such large amounts of variables. Quantum computing is starting to be used on these pilots. And we may well be seeing some huge leaps, therefore, in research, not just in AI, but on a broader level across the year, which is why it's so difficult to truly guess. But quantum computing is fascinating. And it's really, if you're at all nerdy, one worth a quick Google in the way in which it works. And finally, I want to talk briefly about biotech. Now, it's not my area, but we know that Neuralink is a thing where they're getting integrations with the brain to control things virtually. I think we're going to start seeing phrases like programmable biology, where perhaps we can hack or amend genes or medicine in some way to start interacting with the body. And I do think that those sorts of phrases are going to start being used in the common vernacular. I just think we talk so much about AI and that physical hardware tech that there at the moment is a gap between bio and tech, and I can start seeing that merging quite a lot, especially as Neuralink gains more traction, as you start seeing the regulation shift its focus from there to AI. You'll see them be able to expand in areas where they're not keeping up, and that's one to keep an eye on as well. So they are my rough emerging tech things, which could be quite fun for 2026. Flew through that. Always good. Right.
Well
I
done,
hope
you.
that helped. So any questions, of course, please do put them in. I can have a stab at answering most. I have sources and citations for most of these, which we can share as well. If anyone has questions, I can try and dig them out and send them afterwards. No problem. Rami, how was that?
Very good. That was really good. Like even my brain is fried. But it's really, really good. Very interesting. We've got a question from Belinda, who
Okay.
asks, "What are your thoughts that France is going to stop using Teams, Zoom, extra for security reasons and using a European tool?"
I see the concern. I think it's going to be extremely difficult to get small businesses away from the major productivity suites.
Mm,
Fundamentally, if you look at the broader tech environment for productivity tools, nothing competes appropriately with the US vendors. Oracle, Google, Microsoft, even though they're international brands, they're international companies, it's very difficult to get everyone to move away. Now, we're already having to have these conversations, and everyone flip flops all the time around Huawei and Chinese devices to play it out that way. Doing the same thing to US does make sense. It is definitely a time of mistrust. Whether they would legislate it versus advise, we'll see. In particular, France doing it doesn't surprise me. They are all rebels. Is that fair, Romy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can definitely see that sort of. I get to say that because you're on the call with me, but I can definitely see them leading the charge. I'm just not sure how far it would be able to play out in practical terms. Zoom is a great alternative to Teams, don't get me wrong, but where do you start looking at a replacement for Outlook, Word, Excel? I know there are one-off tools, but actually you start fracturing your suite of productivity. It starts to become isolated things, and we're taking huge steps backwards in terms of efficiency. So it will be interesting. Now, like I said, geopolitically, if things change, who knows? We've certainly got a DR plan in place in case of that. We've got backups off platform to cover everything if needed. And that's what we provide our clients as well, just in case something like that does happen. And those backups are always stored regionally. So for us within the UK, because we have data compliance laws to do so. So do check that that's the case for your own arse covering, frankly. We just don't know what the future brings. But I think it's a really interesting one. I don't think the UK will copy France for one. Certainly on that, we're too in bed with the US, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I have got the question that we received by email. It's AI feels like it's everywhere already, as it's already peaked. And is there a risk of collapse like websites did in the early 2000s?
Yes, absolutely, it will collapse. Categorically. It will collapse because it's a bit like Highlander. There can be only one. They are all racing, and there is so much money tied up in with it. It's a major risk at the moment for everybody at a market level. Just because if there is that much cash being pumped into so many different options and only one, maybe two will succeed, it's dangerous. Now, companies like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon have spread their risk correctly across tools. So Microsoft's Copilot does not make it much money, but Microsoft's cloud infrastructure does. So they can afford to play with it. Same as Amazon, same as Google, they spread their risk. Companies like Claude, Perplexity, OpenAI, massively exposed. So who's going to win that? I don't know, but it will definitely go pop. That doesn't mean that AI will disappear, much like websites. It's a great example. We didn't suddenly go, well, that's over, and no one has a website. The exact opposite happened. However, it stabilized. We had a bit more of a common sense approach. The money flowed out of it because having a website didn't mean much anymore. It's just a shop front, and it shifted. So I think that's what we're going to see. I don't know if it will happen this year, though. That's it.
Yeah, that's the thing. People keep predicting it, but I don't know. Yeah. We keep hearing about price increases for Microsoft and Google, and is there anything we can do to control cost, or do we just have to accept it?
Yeah. Tough. In short, you can always look for a different tool. The problem is that they are the best things. It's like saying Amazon Prime keep charging you more to use Amazon Prime, but it is convenient and it is good and it outstrips other things on the market. I personally hate it. I still use it. That's sort of where we are when we're using modern technology tools nowadays. There are alternatives at enterprise for sure, but I think if you're worried about costs, come to our next webinar. That's a good prompt. But I think it can be used as a cost saving when you understand it. It's about knowing that those costs are inescapable, just like national insurance. You have a running cost to have a headcount in the business, right? That cost is outside your control and set by a third party. In essence, we are governed by two bodies, our local government and the vendors we buy from as a business. Now, there are ways of leveraging both of those to make it more profitable and more efficient rather than the other. So that's probably where they should focus instead.
And another one, with all this AI coming in 2026, what should a small business actually start using now, and what can we safely ignore?
Sure. What the business should start using is impossible to answer because the answer is probably none of it. You should really be focusing on solving any problems that you have. So AI is a blunt instrument. Now, it can do an awful lot of things, but simply saying we have to be using AI does not make sense. You are more likely to lose time and money than you are to benefit from it. However, when you run into a problem and you don't know how to solve it, now is the time to start looking at, okay, I've got this complex or even simple issue. I'm repeating a task. How can I find a solution that the technology can do for me? So that's really where they should be leveraging it. And there are lots of free examples to do that with. I would as a caveat, say, don't use it for your content generation, for your social media posts. You will get nowhere. It will not work for you. You can use it as a prompt to create something, but don't use it to create.
Yeah.
Use it to automate and simplify jobs for you. That's where it really shines. And that's something that I think we've missed out a lot of. We've tried to replace creatives with AI, which to me doesn't make sense. The one thing we're trying to replace is the human element that we enjoy. We should instead be going, oh, do you know what I hate? Paperwork. Let me automate it. But we're putting ourselves in a position where, as opposed to actually having to think or create, we're the ones doing the grunt work and the machine is having all the fun. It should definitely be the other way around. But in terms of what a young or startup company should focus on, sales.
Mm.
There you go. That's what you should focus on. Anything else?
I think that's it. Yeah, all done.
Perfect.
Thank you. Can you go on the next slide,
I
just in
sure can.
case
Yep.
anyone wants to join us for the next webinar? So like John said, we're going to talk about the costs and how to make them as small as possible in IT, if it's
That's the
possible
one.
at all. But yeah, no, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed it and you found useful. John, thank you very much.
Thank
As
you for
always,
having
very
me.
interesting. And
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see you in a month then.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.